Yo, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your boy Jay Lay, bringing us a 2023 NFL offensive ranking tier prediction video. And in today's video, I am going to be ranking every single team's offense heading into the 2023 to 2024 NFL season. This video is more of a prediction video on how I think each offense is going to do. We have 5 tiers: below average, very mid, above average, going to be really good, or potentially the best in the league. I made this chart last night. Took me a while, so finally happy I got it done, and it's finally done. But this video is going to be a little more predictive. The draft just happened about a week ago, and now that we kind of can tell the general idea of what the offenses are going to look like in 2023. Obviously, it's not finalized, but we have a general idea of what these offenses are going to look like. I figured I could do a tier ranking video on how I think each offense is going to be in 2023. Again, this is more of a predictive video because, like I said, it's still like 5 months away, and there's still going to be trades and free agency signings and all that. But this is more of a predictive video on how I think the offenses are going to be in 2023. I'm probably going to do a defensive one like this in the next couple of days, so if you guys want, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Getting a lot of content out on the 2023 season. Now that the draft is over, all my content is going to be focusing on the 2023 season, prediction videos, record prediction, fantasy videos, all that good stuff. So if you guys don't want to miss out, make sure to like and subscribe. But without further ado, let's just get to the video. Up first, at number 1, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. And by the way, this isn't in like any order, it's just kind of random. But at first, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is a pretty easy one for me. I have them in potentially the best offense in the league. You look at that offense has only gotten better since last year. That receiver core only got stronger. They added a lot of depth at Charlie Jones in the slot and Andre Losabis at the outside. They also added Orlando Brown. I think that was their biggest signing this offseason to get a left tackle. Orlando Brown is finally going to be holding down Joe Burrow's blind side. They did lose Hayden Hurst this offseason, which I thought was a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to see them get another tight end in the draft. It looks like they're sticking with Irv Smith, who they signed in free agency. I like Irv Smith. I think he has a very high ceiling. It's just the health questions and how long he can stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy, I think he will be great. Again, I would have liked to see them maybe get another receiving tight end like Luke Musgrave in the draft. That's one of the guys I was high on to them. But overall, I still think that offense is going to be great. I think it's going to be even better than it was last year just because that offensive line looks like it's finally getting some rhythm, and then that receiver core is even more depth, or has even more depth than it did last year. So Bengals definitely one of the best offenses in the league heading into the season, and I'm very excited to watch that offense in 2023. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans, and I have them in below average. Now, there's not an awful tier. There's not like a potentially worst in the league tier, but if there was, I would be putting the Titans in that tier. I do not like the Titans offense at all. One of my main concerns heading into the draft was the offensive line. If you watch any of my mock drafts, you guys know that. And now I was very high on the Peter Skoronski pick. I was mocking that a bunch of times. I was saying in every video, you don't need to trade up for a quarterback. You can take Peter Skoronski and help that offensive line and kind of diversify it. They did, and they ended up taking Will Levis in the second round, so it was a win-win. I really like the Peter Skoronski pick. They also got Jalen Duncan, who that offensive line is kind of shifting right now. I believe Peter Skoronski is going to be at left guard. Jalen Duncan is going to be moved from right tackle to left tackle, I believe, and Andre Dillard from left tackle to right tackle, I believe. So that offensive line isn't horrible, still not great. There are still some major pieces missing in that offensive line. And I'm not sure exactly what the quarterback situation is. I believe it's going to be Ryan Tannehill starting at least like the beginning of the season. And then depending on where they're at, Will Levis could potentially come in around like week 7 through 10 from what I'm understanding. Looking at that receiving core as well, it's not anything special. Treylon Burks is the wide receiver one. And I'm actually a bit more high on Treylon Burks than most people. I think you give him a good quarterback and you let him develop. I think he will be a solid wide receiver. But when he's your only main wide receiver, that's not going to cut it. So Titans, I'm not very high on at all. And again, I would not be surprised if they are one of the worst offenses in the league. And another concern is Derrick Henry. I know he's great, and I think he's still going to continue to be great. But when you have a running back who's starting to age, the worst thing you can have for a running back who's starting to get old and kind of hitting that declining age is a bad offensive line. And I definitely think that offensive line has improved since last year. But even then, when you have a bad running, or not a bad running back, a bad offensive line, that is probably the worst thing you can have for an aging running back. So I'm not very high on the Titans this year, especially offensively. I think they're going to be one of the worst in the league. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be a rough year for that offense. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is a very tough one. I was debating whether they should go potentially the best offense in the league or going to be really good, and you know what? We're going potentially the best offense in the league. I know that might sound a little crazy. I was really high on putting them here at first, but I think that Jags offense has the potential to be the best in the league. You look at that offense, it has only gotten significantly better since last year. A lot of people forgot about the Calvin Ridley trade. I think that is going to be a major signing. And you look at that wide receiver trio, that's going to be a good wide receiver trio, and Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk in the slot. I think that's going to be great. They also added Parker Washington in the slot. And then that offensive line, little shaky last year, but they did add Anton Harrison. That was one of my favorite picks in the draft, the double trade down to take Anton Harrison. I thought that was perfect. So he, I believe, is going to be at left tackle, and then I believe he's going to be at left tackle. Cam Robinson might move to right tackle on the depth chart. That's what it shows. I've seen a couple different ones, but I believe Anton Harrison will start at left tackle, and then I'm not sure what they're going to do on the rest of that offensive line with with Walker Little and Cam Robinson, because on one depth chart I see it says Anton Harrison at left tackle, Cam Robinson at right tackle, and then another one says Anton Harrison is second string behind Cam Robinson at left tackle. Either way, though, I did like that Anton Harrison signing. I think he is going to be making an immediate impact on that offensive line. I was very high on that and protecting Trevor Lawrence. They also managed to sign Tank Bigsby to get another complimentary back to Travis Etienne. I think that offense is going to be great. They also held on to Evan Ingram for another year. That offense was really good last year, kind of behind a bad offensive line, like I said, and they really kind of lacked that wide receiver 3. Well, now you have Calvin Ridley, you have another complimentary back, and you also have a good left tackle in Anton Harrison. I'm very high on that offense, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have another massive leap. And, you saw from his rookie year to his second year that big leap forward that a lot of rookie quarterbacks take in their second year. I think he's going to have another leap forward from his second year to his third year. So I'm very excited to watch that Titans team in 2023. I think they're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. You can call me crazy if you think. Again, I could see the case for we're going to be really good, but I think they have the ceiling to be one of the best offenses in the league. Next up, we have the Houston Texans, and this is a team I'm very excited to watch and see how they develop in 2023. We're starting them off in very mid, but I do think they have a very high ceiling. I think they have a ceiling of potentially even a really good offense, and depending on how that team develops offensively. But you look, starting off at the receiving core in the draft, they added Xavier Hutchinson in one of the later rounds. I thought that was a steal. On the outside, I'm going to be very excited to watch him on the outside. They also added Tank Dell in the slot, very explosive. I think he and CJ Stroud are going to be a very lethal duo. And then you also have John Mechie returning from cancer. Thank God he was cleared a few weeks ago, and I think a lot of people are forgetting him. I think he, Tank Dell, and CJ Stroud are going to be a very good quarterback receiver combo. You also have Nico Collins on the outside and Robert Woods at the slot, more of a veteran receiver. Then on the offensive line, you have Laramie Tunsil at tackle, who they gave that massive contract extension to. On the interior, you added right guard Shaq Mason, great signing, and then Juice Scruggs at center to help that interior. And then you also added Dalton Schultz over the offseason, and then another complimentary back in Devin Singletary. And then obviously CJ Stroud was the biggest one in the draft. I think that offense does have very high potential, and that's kind of why I said I think to start off, especially in the beginning of the season, I think they are going to be a pretty mid to below average offense. But as they go and as they develop, I think especially in like a couple years, in a year to 2 or 3, I think we could be seeing them kind of like the Jaguars taking those massive leap forwards. And if they develop fast, I think they do have a very high ceiling, like in the really good offensive category. As of now, I think it's going to be a pretty mid offense, especially to start the year, but I do think they have a very high ceiling. And I am very excited to watch it. CJ Stroud has just about all the weapons he needs, so depending on how he utilizes them and how he develops, I think that's going to kind of dictate how that offense goes in 2023. Next up, we have the Colts, and this is a tough one. I think, again, kind of like the Texans, they have a pretty high ceiling. I think they could be a really good offense, but I do think they also have a pretty low floor. So we're going to start at very mid. It's kind of a tough one between below average and very mid. I think they're going to start the season off pretty mid, though, pretty average. You look at that offense. That offense has improved a lot, and I do think with Shane Steichen at the at the head coach now, I do think that offense has a very high ceiling. Starting off, you look at that receiving core. You have Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, and then Isaiah McKenzie, who was added from the Bills to the slot. You also added Josh Downs, who I thought was a major addition as well. He's going to be more limited to the slot, but I thought that receiving core did get a massive upgrade, especially in the slot with Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie. And then obviously the other major one was Anthony Richardson. Now, there's been talk that Anthony Richardson may or may not start week 1. Some people say he will, some people say he won't. There was a report, I think that it was rumors from the Colts that he will be starting week 1. And I like it. I like the idea. I like the aggressiveness. Obviously, they have Gardner Minshew at quarterback too. That's kind of the quarterback race between the two of them right now. But I think if Anthony Richardson has a good offseason, obviously we saw what Shane Steichen did with Jalen Hurts. But the thing a lot of people were saying is, will Anthony Richardson sit out the first year? Or some people have been saying that Gardner Minshew could start the first 8 to 9 games, start the first half of the season, see where they're at midway through the season, take an evaluation. If they're doing great with Gardner Minshew, then that's great. Keep him in, keep him going for the rest of the season. But if they're at a point where they could put Anthony Richardson and they don't have too much to lose in place, then they could put him in and just hope for the best. I like it. I think it would be the safer route to start Gardner Minshew, at least for the first half of the season, but who knows? They could come out swinging and start Anthony Richardson. If they do start Anthony Richardson, I think it's going to be a very up and down season for the Colts. I think, there's going to be a lot of those freak athlete plays that we saw in college from Anthony Richardson, but I do think there's also going to be a lot of plays where people do remember that he has a lot of developing to do. So I'm kind of curious to see what the Colts do with Anthony Richardson. I personally think they should start him, just go out swinging, see what happens. If he really does need to sit on the bench for a year and develop, then that's fine. You pull him on the bench and let him sit behind Gardner Minshew. But if not, if he's doing okay, then keep him in. But anyways, either way, I do like that offense. I like the receiving core. I like that offensive line. And I do think you have enough help for Anthony Richardson to where I think he can do decent, at least, at starting quarterback if he does start week 1. The only thing is tight end. Tight end's a little weak. Jelani Woods, who I do think Jelani Woods has a pretty high ceiling. I think he's kind of underrated, and I think hopefully this year he can kind of have a breakout year where he can get some recognition, but that's kind of the one position I would like to see maybe upgraded this offseason a little bit. But other than that, I like that offense. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield as well. But the main question is quarterback, and I think the quarterback play will kind of dictate how that offense goes. But who knows? We'll see how we go. But either way, for right now, it's going to be very mid, but we'll see as the season progresses. Next up, we have the Packers, and this is a team I was debating between above average or very mid. I think they're going to be above average. I don't think they're going to be anything special, but I do think they're going to be better than mid. I think they will be above average. And you look at that receiving core. Now, that receiving core has massively upgraded, and you can tell they did everything they possibly can for Jordan Love in his first year as the starting quarterback. They added Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft at tight end, both in the draft, and then they also added Jaden Reed and Wicks Dontavion, I believe that's how you say his name, at receiver. Jaden Reed will be the starting slot receiver, and then Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs on the outside. And then Grant Debose and Wicks Dontavion at the kind of wide receiver 2 position for the outside. Now, I am very high on that offense, and I do think that with time, it's going to be a very good offense. I think they have potential to be like one of the best in the league, going to be a really good offense, one of those offenses that's always up for debate in a couple years. My only concern right now is it's a very young receiving core. Jordan Love obviously sat behind the bench for a couple years. I do think he's as ready to go as he can. Now the only developing and learning he has to do is when he is the quarterback 1 leading that team. So I am excited to see him. The one thing I think that could help him develop more is getting a veteran wide receiver or tight end on that team. You look, Jaden Reed, it's his first year. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, all rookies. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are going to be going into their second year. So they're going to kind of have to step up as the veteran receivers. And I forgot who it was. It was someone on ESPN saying the one kind of major lack on that offense is like a veteran receiver or tight end. And it's always going to take extra time when you have a very young receiving core, which it's not like a bad thing. It's not going to make or break that offense. But when you have a very young developing offense, you always hope at least for a veteran receiving core. But it's all good. I think that offense is going to be good. It's just going to take time for them to kind of get meshed together to be a lethal offense. But I do think, like I said, in a year to 2, they are going to be a very good offense. It's going to take them a while to kind of develop together and kind of mesh together. But like I said, once that offense kind of does get going, I think it's going to be a good offense. So I think they're going to start out kind of mid. They're going to kind of be between that above average and very mid category. But like I said, in a few years, I think it's going to be a very good offense. Next up, we have the Vikings, and this is an offense I think is going to be really good. I don't think they're going to be like one of the best in the league. I think they'll be like top 10. That receiving core is looking very nasty now with Jay Jettis and Jordan Addison. I think that's going to be one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. And I think Jordan Addison is going to be a great wide receiver too. TJ Hawkinson, obviously, in that receiver core. I think KJ Osborne's going to be a nice wide receiver 3 in the slot. That offensive line looks okay. Both tackles look solid, but the interior defensive line is the big question. It was a little shaky last year. They didn't do much to fix it this year. I believe they allowed like 150 pressures on the interior, which is pretty rough. But other than the interior, it looks pretty solid. I think Kirk Cousins. I heard somebody say there's a chance that if Kirk Cousins kind of struggles this year, we could see Jaren Hall get put in at some point in the season. I don't know how true that is, but I do think Kirk is going to do much better this year. Now he has a solid wide receiver too, and I think it's going to be a really good offense. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, and I realized I accidentally had them in potentially the best last time when I was filming the Vikings one, but they are going in potentially the best offense in the league. I think the Eagles got significantly better on offense this year than last year, and I know it sounds crazy because they were so good offensively, but I think on defense too, they got so much better defensively. And you look at that receiving core to start off. They didn't do too much with the receiving core. They did add Olamide Zaccheaus in the slot, which I thought was kind of underrated. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. They did lose their right guard, but they signed Tyler Steen in the draft. Now he's listed as a tackle, but I believe he's going to be starting at right guard. So that offensive line is looking solid. Jason Kelce returned for another season. That was huge. And then some of the bigger ones where they added DeAndre Swift at running back. Now I think he and Rashad Penny are going to be a lethal running back duo. And that offense has so much diversity. It's such a strong receiving core, yet such a good running backfield as well. Jalen Hurts, obviously, I think they're going to use him a lot as well. One guy I think they're going to use a lot more than people are giving him credit for is Marcus Mariota. I think they're going to use him in a lot of those RPO plays as well. They did sign him this offseason, so I think that backfield with DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, and Rashad Penny, and then the RPOs with Jalen Hurts and Marcus Mariota, I think it's going to be great. And then obviously that receiving core is looking strong. Offensive line looking good as well. I don't know. Tyler Steen is listed as right guard number 2 behind Cam Sturgis. I don't know who's going to start between the two. But either way, that offensive line should be pretty solid, and that offense is going to be very lethal. So I have them in one of the best, if not the best, category. Next up, we have the Chiefs, and this is one I was actually debating between like a really good offense, like the best really good offense, or potentially one of the best in the league. And at first, I thought, I wasn't very high on them, and I said, they're just going to be really good. But it's Andy Reid, it's Pat Mahomes. Last year when they lost Tyreek Hill, everyone, including myself, was doubting them. And look at they went ahead and won the Super Bowl. So until they can prove that they can work with not a lot offensively, then I'm gonna stop doubting, because every time I do doubt, they just prove me wrong. So I am not very high on that offense, as a lot of people are. I look at that receiving core: Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, and Sky Moore in the slot. And then they also added Rashee Rice in the second round, I believe, second or third round. I thought that was a bit of a reach. So that's what the main receiving core is. Again, Rashee Rice, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then Kadarius Toney, and then Sky Moore in the slot. I think Sky Moore is going to have a big jump in his second year. I think Kadarius Toney is going to be solid. We saw him in the Super Bowl making some great plays. But I don't know. It's not great. I think it was much better last year when they had Juju Smith-Schuster. But again, we've seen Patrick Mahomes last year. He did not have much. Juju was really his only receiving threat besides Travis Kelce, and look what they did. So I'm not very high on that receiving core, but again, until I can be proved otherwise, I'm just going to keep believing. And then you look at that offensive line. That offensive line looks very good. They did lose Orlando Brown at left tackle, but they replaced him with Donovan Smith. And then at right tackle, you have Jawan Taylor. Interior offensive line looks solid as well: Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey. So that offensive line is going to be one of the best in the league. It looks very solid. And then obviously you have Travis Kelce at tight end. So it's good. They didn't do anything in the running back field. They still have Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon. He did return. So the offense looks really solid, other than just kind of a plain receiving core, which that's what it was last year. And, they went ahead and won the Super Bowl. So again, I'm not super high on them. I don't think they're going to be the best offense. I don't think they're like the contender for the best, but I do think they'll be one of the best in the league, if that makes sense. But I just would have liked to see them get another big receiver, either in like a trade or free agency or something, but we'll see. It's not a bad receiving core, don't get me wrong, but it's just not a great receiving core either. Next up, we have the Chargers, and this is a tough one. I was debating between above average and gonna be really good, but I think with Kellen Moore at the offensive coordinator position now, Quentin Johnson as another receiver, I think it's gonna be a really good offense. You look at that receiving core: Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, and Mike Williams. If Keenan Allen and Mike Williams can stay healthy, then it's going to be one of the best receiving cores in the league with Quentin Johnson. I think he's like a mini Mike Williams, so I'm very excited to watch that. They did add Jordan McFadden in the offensive line during the draft. I like him. He's very versatile, can play tackle or guard. Right now he's listed as right guard, so that'll be interesting. I do like him, so I think he'll be a nice addition to the offensive line. Rashawn Slater coming back as well at left tackle, so they get their premier tackle back. I think that's a major upgrade. The one thing they didn't really focus on, which I would have liked to see them get, was a tight end. I actually thought they were going to take Dalton Kincaid at pick 21. They did not. They went ahead and they took Quentin Johnson, which wasn't a bad pick, but right now their tight end one is Gerald Everett. Not bad, but I would like to see them get a more vertical threat tight end, either through a trade or free agency, but it's all good. That offense still looks good. Gerald Everett was solid for them. I just wanted them to get a more receiving threat tight end as well, but it's all good. That offense is looking pretty solid, so I'm going to give it going to be really good offense. And, you look at that offense and you look at how well Justin Herbert played last year without his left tackle, without Mike Williams, without Keenan Allen. It's hard to doubt him and doubt that offense now with a new offensive coordinator. I think you have a number one wide receiver now in Quentin Johnson. Not a number one, but another wide receiver to make a great wide receiver trio as long as they can stay healthy, and you get your premier left tackle back. It's just hard for me to doubt that offense right now, so they're going to be really good. I think they have potential to be one of the best in the league, but for now they're going to be really good. But I am very excited to watch that offense. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions, and this is an offense I think is going to be really good in 2023. I don't think they're going to be one of the best, but I do think it's going to be a very good offense. And you look at that receiving core, you have Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds, and Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. Now, the big kicker to them was the suspension of Jameson Williams. He will be out for the first 6 weeks of the season for betting or gambling on the NFL. He's going to be out the first 6 weeks of the season. It sucks because last year, it was his rookie season. He was out because of an injury. Now he's going to be out the first 6 weeks, and that is a real bummer. He has such a great speed and deep threat potential. So I do think that is going to significantly hurt that receiving core. It's not a bad receiving core, but I do think the loss of Jameson Williams for the first 6 weeks is going to hurt. The offensive line looks solid, though. Taylor Decker at left tackle, Penei Sewell at right tackle, and then Frank Ragnow at center. It's a solid offensive line. They did add Sam Laporta to tight end in the draft. I think that's great. He's a good receiving tight end, also has high upside blocking, kind of like the TJ Hawkinson replacement. And then they did get Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 12. I thought that was a bit of a reach, but I do think they went out, they were aggressive, they got him at pick 12 for a reason. They're going to use him a lot in the offense, and then him and David Montgomery, I think that's going to be a very good backfield. They also took Hendon Hooker in the second round. It was either the second or the third round, I forgot exactly, but they took Hendon Hooker. I don't think he's going to see the field much. I think Jared Goff is their guy, especially with the extra weapons they added in Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs, because Jared Goff had a very good season last year, and I think now you get him another really good tight end and another good running back to utilize with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's going to be great, and then also when Jameson Williams returns. So I don't think Hendon Hooker is going to see the field right away. I think he will wait till at least next year before he kind of takes over, if then. But I do like the Lions offense, so I think it is going to be really good. I think once Jameson Williams comes back as well, it is going to have potential to be one of the best in the league just because he has so much speed and deep threat potential. But until then, it's just going to be really good, which, I mean, it's still going to be a great offense, just not one of the best in the league offenses. Next up, we have the Carolina Panthers, and this is an offense I'm very excited to see in this upcoming year. I think they're going to be significantly better offensively this year than they were last year. First off, you look at the receiving core. They added Jonathan Mingo in the draft, Terrace Marshall and DJ Chark on the outside, and then in the slot, Adam Thielen, who they added over free agency. That offensive line looks really solid. And then tight end, they added Hayden Hurst over free agency, and then obviously Bryce Young was their number one pick in the draft. So I think it's going to be a very good offense. And then they also added Miles Sanders over free agency, so the backfield looks like it's going to be a dual threat between him and Chuba Hubbard. I think it's going to be a really good offense. I think that that receiving core is significantly better. I think you have some good veteran guys like Adam Thielen in there and DJ Chark, but you also have some younger guys like Jonathan Mingo. So I'm very excited to watch that receiving core. Now, there were talks that Bryce Young may not be the starter week 1 and that it's going to be Andy Dalton. I personally believe it's just a tactic to make Bryce Young work really hard and try to earn it. Because I believe it was Tom Brady said in an interview one time that a lot of these younger quarterbacks who come in really highly ranked don't have that same work ethic as someone who's competing for the spot. And basically, the main thing was just that they want Bryce Young to work for it, and they want him to really have that extra drive to earn the starting position. So I think Bryce Young will be the starter week 1. I think, like I said, it's just a tactic for him to work harder and really earn it. And I do think he has all the weapons he needs to really succeed. I think that offense is going to be very good. Again, Bryce Young is the most day one ready quarterback, in my opinion, a rookie quarterback. And like I said, I think he has all the weapons he needs to at least be consistently good. Maybe not like a special great first year, like incredible, but I do think he is going to be very consistent, at least with that receiving core and obviously the good, solid offensive line. So I'm going to put them in above average. I don't think they're going to be necessarily one of the really good offenses yet. I think maybe if they develop and, we kind of see them mid-season strides, then they have potential. But as of now, I think they're just going to be above average. I think, like I said, it is significantly upgraded, but it's not anything like crazy special either. So I think it's going to be above average. I think Bryce Young is going to come in there and at least be very consistent from the get-go. And as that offense kind of meshes together, I do think it is going to get a lot better. But at least to start the season, they're just going to be above average. Up next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to start out, you look at the receiving core. They have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and then Allen Robinson in the slot, who they acquired from a trade with the Rams. You look at that offensive line, though, and that offensive line has majorly improved since last year. Start off at left tackle Broderick Jones, who they traded up for at pick 14 with the Patriots. You also acquired guard Isaac Sumalo. I believe that's how you say his name. He's going to be starting at left guard. And then Mason Cole as well at center. Very solid offensive line. And they didn't do too much else besides Broderick Jones on offense in the draft. Left tackle, they got him. But I'm still very high on that offensive line and that offense in general. I think Kenny Pickett is going to have a big jump from rookie year to his year two, kind of like what we saw with Trevor Lawrence this year in his rookie year to year two. I think that's going to kind of be the same thing with Kenny Pickett this year. I'm very excited. Now, obviously, they still have Matt Canada, who is one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league, but I think there is enough talent on this offense to where they can at least be consistently good. And again, I don't think it's going to be anything like super special, but I do think they're going to be above average because last year this offense was pretty mid to below average. I do think this offense is going to be above average, though, just with that offensive line and the addition of Broderick Jones, Isaac Sumalo, finally protecting Kenny Pickett, who I think can utilize that receiving core pretty well. So I'm very excited to watch it, and I hope it is a good offense because I really like Kenny Pickett, but I think they are going to be a good above-average offense. Next up, we have my team, the New England Patriots. And to start out, you look at that receiving core. I do think the receiving core has been drastically upgraded since last season. Starting off, you have Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne on the outside, and then your wide receiver one in the slot, Juju Smith-Schuster, who they acquired from free agency. You have Demario Douglas, who they drafted in the 7th round, who's going to be a slot receiver, and Keyshawn Butte, who's going to be on the outside, wide receiver 2, outside behind Kendrick Bourne. I like both of those. Demario Douglas, who I really like, he's very fast, very elusive and speedy. Keyshawn Butte, same thing, I like him. And I think they are both going to be major additions and help to Mac Jones. I think that the biggest upgrade, though, was finally getting a good offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien. Matt Patricia was awful last year. I think finally having a good offensive coordinator for Mac Jones is significantly going to help him. The receiver core did get upgraded again, like I said, Keyshawn Butte, Demario Douglas, and Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Tyquan Thornton will take another step in year 2 as well, kind of more as a vertical threat. You looked at that offensive line. The one main question was right tackle. They did sign Riley Reef, who is okay. He's, nothing special. He's not bad. He's just kind of mediocre. He's solid. I would have liked to see them get another right tackle. DeJuan Jones was on the board at 1 pick, and they didn't go with him, and I was kind of disappointed they didn't. They did sign 3 interior offensive linemen, Jake Andrews, Antonio Mafi, and City So, all kind of versatile, so they can move them around as they want. Right guard Michael Nweno, I think he's going to be very solid, though. Last year he was kind of moving around at right tackle and right guard. Well, now he can finally just be a right guard, pure right guard, so I think he'll be good. And I think that offensive line is going to be pretty good. The main question, though, was right tackle, and even left tackle. Trent Brown kind of had a down year last year, so it is going to be interesting. I think the interior offensive line for the Patriots is really good. Just the tackle positions are a little weaker. And then obviously Mike Gesicki, so kind of a dual threat at tight end with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. And then running back, you have Ramondre Stevenson as kind of your main guy. They also did get James Robinson, who I think is going to be a pretty solid running back too. Mac Jones, a lot of questions there. Bill Belichick, not very high on him, it seems like, over this offseason. I think he's their guy. I think that finally, under a new good offensive coordinator and getting him some weapons, I think he's going to flourish, and I think he is going to have a major year 3 leap and a big bounce back year from year 2. So I'm very excited to watch this Patriots offense. Now, I don't think it's going to be really good, at least to start. I think they're going to be above average, but I do think as they progress, I do think they have a potential to be a really, really good offense. But as of now, I think they'll be an above average kind of consistent offense, but I do think the ceiling it would be like a really good offense. So start out, they'll be an above average offense, but like I said, I do think they have the ceiling to be a really good offense. Up next, we have the Chicago Bears, and this is an offense I think is going to be very good next year. I don't think it's going to be one of the best in the league, but I do think it's going to be really good. They've had a lot of good offseason improvements. Obviously, they had the number 1 overall pick, traded down, got a bunch of picks. They also got DJ Moore, finally getting Justin Fields a true wide receiver 1. And, everyone likes to hate on Justin Fields and call him a running back and this and that. I'm very high on Justin Fields, and I think once you get him even a decent offensive line with some decent receiving weapons, he's going to be great. They did that. They went out, they got right tackle Darnell Wright in the draft. I like Darnell Wright. He can play left or right tackle. I would have preferred them to get a pure left tackle, but he is going to be starting at right tackle. Again, I would have liked to see them get a left tackle. Paris Johnson was off the board already, so they went with Darnell Wright. He's going to start at right tackle, but they can move him to left tackle if they want because he has played left tackle before. Another big one was they got DJ Moore in the trade with Carolina. So right now that wide receiver trio is looking like DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and then Darnell Mooney in the slot. I like it. They also added Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati for another slot receiver. Those were really the main things. They didn't do a whole lot offensively this draft or this offseason, but it is going to be pretty solid. I think the addition of DJ Moore and Darnell Wright to kind of help that O-line and then add a true wide receiver 1 is good enough. I think Justin Fields is going to have a pretty big jump from year 2 to year 3. You look at the backfield, they did lose David Montgomery. They did replace him with Deontay Foreman and then Khalil Herbert obviously staying there. So I'm going to be interested to see that. They also got Roschon Johnson in the draft. I believe it was round 4. So they have a pretty good backfield. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see the team. So if I had to choose right now, the Bears, I would put them in above average. I think we're finally going to see Justin Fields with the dual threat of him being a running quarterback. Because everyone knows he is a running quarterback and he is very fast and elusive. But I think we're going to finally see him as a passing quarterback and see the potential there. So I'm very excited. They also picked up Robert Tonyan at tight end, so he and Cole Kmet will share snaps at tight end. But I'm very excited. I think they're going to be above average. I think they have a very high ceiling. I think they could be potentially a really good offense. But for now, they're going to be above average. But I do think we are going to see a massive leap in Justin Fields and see a massive progression from year 2 to year 3 this upcoming season. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders. And this is a team I'm not super high on, but I'm also not super low on. You look at that receiving core. It's actually a pretty solid receiving core. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel in the slot. Jahan Dotson, I'm very high on. He doesn't get a lot of love, but I really like him. I think he's going to have a big second year in the league. Curtis Samuel, great veteran in the slot, and then Terry McLaurin, obviously, he's a beast. The one main concern on that offense is the offensive line. It's a pretty weak offensive line. They did get Andrew Wiley at right tackle over the offseason, which I thought was nice, but I would have liked to see them get some more help on the interior offensive line during the draft. They did get Ricky Stomberg and Braden Daniels at left tackle, and Ricky Stomberg was a center. I think Ricky Stomberg can play left or right guard, I believe as well. There were some reports that Ricky Stomberg might get moved to left guard. I'm not sure exactly, but the interior offensive line is not the best for the Commanders, so I would like to see that improve a little bit more before the season starts. Sam Howell, as of now, is set to be the QB1 behind or in front of Jacoby Brissett, who they acquired over free agency. I like Sam Howell, and I think it's time they start him. He sat on the bench for a year. He looked great when he was in for the few plays he played throughout the season. And I'm excited. I think he's going to have an up and down year. I think it's going to be a slow start, but I do think give him some time and let him develop. I think he's going to be a really good player, so I am glad they are sticking with him for at least this next season. He is their quarterback 1 as of now, and I do believe he's going to start, so I like it. I think he has enough weapons. He has 3 pretty solid receivers. He has Eric Bieniemy now, who is the new offensive coordinator for the Commanders, so that is definitely going to help. The tight end, Logan Thomas, I know there was talk that they might go out and get someone like Dalton Kincaid, get a receiving tight end, kind of like what Eric Bieniemy did with Travis Kelce, get a receiving tight end. They didn't do that, so it's all good. The main concern for me is that offensive line. It's kind of questionable coming into the season, but I do like Sam Howell, and I think Eric Bieniemy can work his magic and probably turn that Commanders offense into something special this year. So I think they're going to be kind of mid, at least to start off. I think you give Sam Howell some time and give Eric Bieniemy some time, and I think that team will mesh, and I think they could be an above-average, really good type offense. But to start out, at least, I think it's going to be kind of mid. I think it'll be an up-and-down year for them. But I am excited to see Sam Howell progress throughout the year and see that offense progress with Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator. Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and this is a team that actually lost their offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore went to the Chargers. They replaced him with Brian Schottenheimer, who is a good offensive coordinator type guy. He works well with systems like Dallas, so I am curious to see how that works. I think it'll work out pretty well. You look at that receiving core starting out, you have Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks, who they acquired from a trade this offseason at the outside, and then CeeDee Lamb at slot. I think that's a very good wide receiver trio. I think it's going to go CeeDee Lamb at 1, Brandon Cooks at 2, and then Michael Gallup at 3. I think that's a very good and diverse wide receiver trio. Offensive line looks secure. They did lose Dalton Schultz in free agency. Jake Ferguson is stepping up to be the tight end 1, and then they drafted Luke Schoonmaker. The backfield, Ezekiel Elliott lost in free agency as well. Tony Pollard is going to step up and be the RB1. He was pretty much the RB1 last year. He did fine. I think he's going to do really well this year as well. So I'm very excited to see this team. I think adding CeeDee Lamb, it's going to make that wide receiver trio very good, that receiving core good. I would have liked to maybe see them get another tight end in the draft. Well, they did get Luke Schoonmaker, so I'm excited to see that. I think Jake Ferguson will step up. He's always been solid. He's just never been the tight end 1. I think he will have a good step-up year as the tight end 1 now, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that offense works with Brian Schottenheimer calling the plays now. But I think as long as Dak Prescott can stay healthy, I think it's going to be a good offense. I think they're going to be really good. So for that, we're putting him there. In the really good category. The main thing is if Dak Prescott can stay healthy, which hopefully he can. If he can stay healthy, though, I think it is going to be a very good offense this year. I think it is better than last year, and I'm excited to see this Cowboys offense. Up next, we have the Giants, and this is an offense I think that has drastically gotten better since last year. You look at the receiving core they went out. They drafted Jalen Hyatt in the 3rd round. Isaiah Hodgins, who's looking pretty good as well. He had a very good season last year. Darius Slayton, and then Paris Campbell in the slot, who they got from a trade with Indianapolis. Very good receiving core. I think that receiving core is definitely better than it was last year. Also, Darius Slayton, I forgot to mention him. Very solid, very good receiving core. Offensive line looks good as well. Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal at the tackle position. And then in the second round, they drafted John Michael Schmitz. I thought that was a great steal for their center position. And some of my mock drafts, I had him going in the first round to either the Giants or the Seahawks because that's how aggressive I thought some teams were going to be for him. So the fact they got him in the second round was a steal. And then obviously Jalen Hyatt in the third round. The backfield, obviously Saquon Barkley, not much changed there. But I'm very excited. And they also got Darren Waller in a trade with the Raiders. I thought that was great. And as long as Darren Waller can stay healthy, I think he's going to be great. He's going to be a very good, consistent weapon for Daniel Jones. And speaking of Daniel Jones, I am much higher on him than most people, I think. Now that he has a true good receiving core and a solid offensive line, I think he's going to do great. Now that he has a good head coach, I think he's going to be great, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this season, especially after that contract extension they gave him. The Giants obviously have trusted him. They obviously have faith in him. So do I. I think he's going to be great, and I think he's going to be a great leader for this team. And I think this offense has very high potential. I think it could surprise a lot of people with how good they are. I think they're going to be a really good offense tier for me. I think they have a potential to be one of the best in the league. I really do. I know that sounds crazy, but they've added so many, weapons on this offense. And Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins is looking like he's turning into something good. Paris Campbell, obviously that offensive line looks great. John Michael Schmitz at center, Darren Waller. I mean, if all these pieces can come together and stay healthy and mesh together, I think they're going to be a great offense, and I think they're going to have potential to be one of the best offenses in the league. Right now, they're going to be really good just because it is, that's a pretty high ceiling, but I do think it's a ceiling they can definitely hit. But as of now, I think they're going to be a really good offense. Up next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is an offense I think is kind of on the opposite side of the Giants. I think they're going to be significantly worse this year. Obviously, they lost Tom Brady. They lost right tackle Donovan Smith. They had an okay draft offensively. They did get Cody Mauch in the second round, who right now is listed to play right guard. He can also play tackle, so he might fill in for Donovan Smith, but as of now, he is listed to play right guard. They did go ahead and get Trey Palmer in the draft. The receiving core still is pretty good, though. Mike Evans, Russell Gage, and then Chris Godwin in the slot. They added Trey Palmer and Raheem Jarrett in the slot as well for the receiving core. The offensive line, Tristan Wirfs is still there. Cody Mauch, like I said, right guard. Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. That's the quarterback situation right now. As of now, Baker Mayfield is going to start. Kyle Trask is going to sit behind him. I'm not really sure what the long-term plan is for Kyle Trask. Baker Mayfield's on the one-year deal, so who really knows? And there hasn't been much word on who's going to be starting as of now between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. I think it's an up-for-grabs type of thing. The offensive line, again, though, I'm not very high on it. They need another right tackle. They need another right tackle, so it's going to be interesting to see how that offense works. Baker Mayfield, I mean, you're getting probably mediocre at best. I mean, it's not a bad offense. I think if Baker Mayfield can perform decent, I think it could be a good offense, but I'm just not very high on it. It's not a very good offensive line. They lost Shaq Mason in free agency. They did bring in Cody Mauch, like I said. I think that was a decent draft now that you can get a right guard and replace Shaq Mason, but I still would have liked to see them get another right tackle. Tight end, Cade Otton's going to start. I like Cade Otton going into his second year, and then the running backfield is looking like it's going to be Rachaad White, Chase Edmonds, and then Keyshawn Vaughn. So not a bad backfield, nothing special though. And then that offense, I mean, it's a good receiving core, but other than that, it's not anything special to me. So I'm going to have them in below average. I think that's kind of harsh. I think they could be in the mid category, kind of the mediocre category. But to me, the offensive line, not that great. Significant downgrade at quarterback. You lost your running back. You don't have Leonard Fournette, who I think Rachaad White's fine, but just a lot of pieces that are no longer with that offense. And I also think without Tom Brady, that offense is not going to function near as well as it did, just because Todd Bowles is not a very good head coach. And I think, having Tom Brady there was kind of some stability, but I don't know. I'm just not very high on that offense. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But as of now, I think they're going to be a below average offense. I'm just not very high on them, and I don't have much faith in that offense. Up next, we have the Saints, and right away you look at that receiving core: Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, and Rashid Shaheed in the slot. Now, Michael Thomas, who knows if he's actually going to play? I believe it's been since 2019, he hasn't played a full season consistently yet because of injuries. He is getting older as well. So, A.T. Perry, they did take in the draft. I think A.T. Perry has a shot at filling in for Michael Thomas right away if he's hurt or showing signs of slowing down because of his injuries. I think there's a shot A.T. Perry could fill in the outside wide receiver position for Michael Thomas very quickly. Who knows? If Michael Thomas can come back and be healthy and be consistent again like he was a few years ago, I think that's great. I think that receiving core is going to be great. The offensive line is pretty solid. I would have liked to see them get some help at left guard potentially on the interior. But other than that, I think it's a pretty solid offensive line. They did add Derek Carr in free agency. Obviously, I think getting a good, solid quarterback is definitely going to boost that wide receiver core. Juwan Johnson looking like a solid tight end. He's their tight end 1 as of now. He looked very solid. And then the backfield also got a lot better. Alvin Kamara, obviously RB1. Jamal Williams, they signed over free agency. And then they drafted Kendre Miller in the draft. So it's a pretty solid backfield. You have a consistent, good quarterback now, veteran quarterback. I think that offense is going to be pretty good. I'm going to have them in above average. I don't think it's going to be anything special. I do think Dennis Allen still is going to kind of halt that offense and slow it down a little bit. But I am excited to see that offense with the addition of Derek Carr, good backfield. Hopefully Michael Thomas is healthy this time. A.T. Perry, get some more rotational wide receiver weapons. I think it's going to be a good offense. I think they'll be above average. And I think they have potential if, Michael Thomas can come back and be the healthy wide receiver he was when he was healthy, be the dominant receiver. That's asking a lot. He's getting older. He's coming back off of a bunch of injuries. But I do think that receiving core, even without Michael Thomas, if he is going to, he slows down and he's not fully healthy, I do think it's still going to be a solid receiving core, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be an above average offense. I think that the addition of Derek Carr is going to finally give some consistency at quarterback, at least for the next couple of years, and I'm excited. I think they'll be a good offense in 2023. Up next, we have the Cardinals, and this is one of the offenses I am not very high on at all. Starting off, you look at that receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, he will most likely not be a Cardinal in 2023. I know there was that video he posted on Instagram where he was kind of saying like he wants to stay in Arizona. I don't think that's true. I think that he is most likely going to be either released or traded away at some point in this offseason. They did get Michael Wilson, who I believe will be his replacement. They drafted him from Stanford. I think he's a great athlete. I'm excited to see him play. And I think he will get a lot of touches, especially if DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Marquise Brown at the other outside wide receiver, and then Rondale Moore in the slot. Not a bad receiving core. I am pretty high on Marquise Brown, but it's nothing special, especially if DeAndre Hopkins leaves. Offensive line, they traded up for Paris Johnson. As of now, he's listed at left guard. I know one possibility is DJ Humphries, who's starting left tackle. They move him to right tackle, and then they said Paris Johnson at left tackle. That was just a theory I heard. I'm not sure if that's true or not. As of now, Paris Johnson listed as that he is going to be the left guard for the Cardinals, which I like. I think they desperately need help on the offensive line, both on the interior and on the outside. That offensive line was horrible last year. Kyler Murray, I think at some point in the season he's going to start, but because of that ACL injury, he's not going to be the starter. And as of now, the quarterback competition for the first couple weeks looks like it's going to be between Colt McCoy, Jeff Driscoll, or Clayton Tune, who they went ahead and drafted in the draft. Either way, though, whoever their starting quarterback is for at least the first couple weeks, it's not going to be pretty. Like I said, it's most likely going to be either Colt McCoy or Jeff Driscoll. Just go with a guy that has some more experience. Kyler Murray's going to be out. The running back room is not very impressive either. James Conner at running back 1. Not a very solid backfield. Offensive line did get a little better, but they also lost Rodney Hudson at center, so it's still a pretty bad offensive line. The receiving core is not going to be great if DeAndre Hopkins leaves. I think it's going to leave a big hole there. I do think, in the next couple of years with all the draft capital they gained from the trade down, I think they're going to be a solid team. I think they're going to kind of rebuild, but they are rebuilding from the absolute bottom, so I'm not expecting much out of this team. I think, it's totally new head coach, Jonathan Gannon, and I don't know, I'm just not very high on this team, so I'm going to give them a below average. I'm going to give them a below average grade. I think potentially down the road later this year, we could, once Kyler Murray comes back and if DeAndre Hopkins stays, I think it could potentially be a mediocre type offense. But as of now, Kyler Murray's not going to be there. Kyler Murray's going to be there, but he's not going to be playing for at least the first half of the season or so. DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to be there. That offensive line still has some major holes on it. Receiving core is not the best. The running back room is not the best either, so it's going to get a below average from me. Next up, we have the 49ers. You start off looking at that receiving core, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and then Jawan Jennings in the slot. They also added Ronnie Bell in the draft, who could play slot. The offensive line, so it's not a bad receiving core. It's I think Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, I think it's a good wide receiver duo. Jawan Jennings is solid in the slot. That offensive line, left tackle Trent Williams, obviously the best left tackle in the league. Other than that, though, that offensive line is pretty horrible. They did lose Mike McGlinchey at right tackle as well, so it's kind of a big hole there at right tackle. The interior offensive line is pretty bad. I would say it's pretty bad. It's just pretty mediocre to under average, I guess you could say. It's not a very good offensive line. Tight end George Kittle. They did go ahead and draft Cameron Lutu as well to get another tight end too. The backfield, Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. Again, I think that's going to be a very good backfield. I believe as of now, Brock Purdy's listed as the starting quarterback, but I don't know because of his injuries if he'll be ready to go in time. Sam Darnold could be the quarterback. Trey Lance. Really, nobody has any idea what's going to happen there. Sam Darnold could potentially be starting. Trey Lance, if Brock Purdy. I don't really know what's going to happen with the quarterbacks yet, just because of Purdy's injury. If he's injured, he can't start. If it's going to be Trey Lance, if it's going to be Sam Darnold, if he is healthy, if Purdy is going to get the starting job, I'm really not sure. So as of now, I think it's going to be an above average offense. Like I said, that offensive line is pretty bad, besides Trent Williams, obviously. Receiving core is not bad. It's a pretty solid receiving core. Same thing with the backfield, but the questions at quarterback, Brock Purdy's not ready to go. Is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? It's going to leave a question in there. So I'm going to give it an above average grade. I think that is a little harsh. I definitely think if they can get their quarterback problem situated and maybe get some help on that offensive line, I think it is going to be a really good offense. But as of now, I know it sounds crazy. It sounds kind of harsh, but I think it's just going to be an above average offense, at least to start the year, once they figure out their quarterback problem. Like if Sam Darnold starts, I don't think it's going to be a very good offense. I think it's going to be kind of mediocre at best. If Brock Purdy can come back from his hand injury and perform the way he was last year in the playoffs, I think it's going to be a great offense. I think it'll be one of the best in the league. But just depending on who's the quarterback, and then again, that offensive line is pretty awful as well. So it's going to be an above average offense to at least start out the season, depending on where they go. Up next, we have the Browns. Starting off, we'll look at that receiving core. This receiving core has upgraded a lot this offseason. Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then Elijah Moore in the slot, who they got in a trade from the Jets. They also drafted Cedric Tillman, who is going to be the wide receiver 2 behind Amari Cooper. I think it's going to be a pretty solid receiving core. That was the main thing they were lacking, was a wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3. They really had no wide receiver depth besides Amari Cooper. Well, now you got it. You got Cedric Tillman. You got Elijah Moore. They also added Marquise Goodwin this offseason, so get some kind of depth. Versatility in that receiving core. Offensive line is solid. They did go ahead and draft DeJuan Jones, who I believe is listed at left tackle 2 right now. We could see him move around on that offensive line, because that offensive line is pretty solid. It's a very good offensive line. So I'm excited, or I'm curious to see where they go with DeJuan Jones. They also added Luke Weipler at center, which right now he's listed as a center 3. So I believe there could be some movement around with Luke Weipler as well. It's a very solid offensive line, though. David Njoku at tight end 1. Obviously, he's a very solid tight end. Deshaun Watson is the main question. And then they also did lose Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb is the running back 1. Still was, even with Kareem Hunt, but they're not going to have that versatility like they did last year and in years past. Deshaun Watson is the main question. How is he going to perform? Obviously, last year he did not perform very well. I think, you give him a break because of the off-field issues and because of how distracted he was, because football wasn't his main concern for the last couple of years. Obviously, it was the off-field issues, and it had been like 2 years since he had played. So I think you kind of give him a break for last season, and then you trust that he can come back and perform how he was before in Houston. I think he's going to be fine. I think the Browns are a very solid offense. That offensive line is great. Very good receiving core. Good backfield. I think he is going to have the time to obviously prepare and have his full focus on football again. So I think Deshaun Watson's going to be fine. I think that offense is going to be a really good offense in 2023. Like I said, just because I think it all lies on Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be able to come back and play how he was in Houston? I think so. I think that offensive line is great. He has a good receiving core. And now his full focus is back on football. So I think it's going to be a really good offense in 2023. If Deshaun Watson doesn't perform and, play well, then obviously I think it's going to tank. I think it's going to be a pretty bad offense, but I don't expect that. I think he's going to do great, especially with the several wide receiver additions in Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. I think it's going to be a very solid offense, and I think they're going to be a really good offense in 2023. Up next, we have the Dolphins. Now, this is a team that not a lot changed offensively. The receiver core, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Cedric Wilson in the slot. Obviously, it's a very, very good wide receiver duo with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Offensive lines didn't change much as well. That was one thing I would have liked to see change, get some help on the interior, because that interior offensive line is not very good. Running back room, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, and then Devin Aiken, they drafted in the draft. Again, the main concern for me is that offensive line. It was pretty bad last year. We saw all the hits Tua took, and I think that offensive line definitely has a lot of room for improvement on the interior, and then at right tackle as well. Tua Tagovailoa, the main question is, can he stay healthy? Can he avoid the head injuries? If he can stay healthy and he can avoid the head injuries, I think it's going to be a great offense. I think he's very good, and I think that, if he can have a consistent season where he's not off the field once every, like every other game, I think it's going to be a great offense. But to me, that comes down to the offensive line protecting Tua, because the offensive line failed Tua Tagovailoa last year. They were not good at protecting him, and that was the one thing they really did not address offensively that I would have seen them like to address, is the offensive line. Get some help there, because it's a pretty bad offensive line besides Teron Armstead. But I would have liked to see some help on that offensive line. Get another, I believe right guard it is, and right tackle. Get some help there. Protect to his blind side. So I am a little worried about that just because of the non-additions and non-help at the offensive line. Tight end looks like it's going to be Durham Smythe after losing Mike Gesicki. Durham Smythe is going to be tight end 1, and then Eric Saubert out of Denver. I believe that was out of free agency. It was going to be tight end 2. So not a bad offense. I think it's going to be really good offense. I think if Tua can stay healthy and that offensive line can step up and improve from last year, I think it's going to be a really good offense, one of the best in the league potentially. As of now, though, I think it's going to be a really good offense. I don't think it's going to be great just because of that offensive line. That offensive line is pretty horrible. But if they can step up and that offensive line can protect Tua more, I think it's going to be one of the best offenses in the league. Until then, though, and until I see that offensive line improve and step up, I think it's just going to be really good offense. Up next, we have the Bills, and starting off, you look at that receiving core, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. Other than that, though, it is a pretty weak receiving core. They don't really have any good slot receivers. Their starting slot receiver is Khalil Shakir. I definitely would have liked to see them get another slot receiver after losing Isaiah McKenzie in this offseason. Offensive line. Now, so for the receiving core real quick, it's not a bad receiving core, but it's not really anything great just because it's kind of limited between Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, who had a pretty down year from 2021. So Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, really your only two main pillars on that receiving core. The offensive line did drastically improve. O'Cyrus Torrence, they got him in the second round. That was one of my favorite picks. And being a Patriots fan, I was very sad to see the Bills get him in round 2. I had him going to the Bills in round 1 in some of my mock drafts. The interior offensive line was what really needed improvement in this draft. Last year versus the Bengals in the divisional game, they lost because of that interior offensive line. It got crumbled by the Bengals defense. They got O'Cyrus Torrence in the second round, which is even better, and get him. I believe he's going to start at right guard, either right guard or left guard. He's versatile, so they do have Connor McGovern at left guard, so I believe he will be starting at right guard. And I thought that was a great signing. Really, he's kind of that final piece they needed on that interior offensive line. And seeing a Patriots fan again, or me being a Patriots fan, seeing them get O'Cyrus Torrence killed me. I was very sad to see that, but I'm happy for them. I mean, it's going to be a very good offensive line now with O'Cyrus Torrence at right guard. Another interesting one is they traded up for Dalton Kincaid in the draft. They traded up with the Jags. I thought that was a very aggressive pick. I really liked it, though. I think, you pair Josh Allen with Dalton Kincaid. I think that's going to be their version of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Obviously, Kincaid has he's a great vertical threat tight end, has all the features Travis Kelce does. He's fast, great hands, and elusive, so I think that's going to be a very good quarterback tight end duo as well. Dawson Knox obviously still there as well, so I think it's going to be a good offense. I'm going to put them in going to be really good. The only reason it's not going to be a potentially the best in the league offense is just because of the slot receiver. It's not a very good receiving room. Gabe Davis obviously had a big fall off year last year. Stephon Diggs is still great, but he was kind of limited to be the only wide receiver one there. I think if Gabe Davis can bounce back, have another good consistent year, which that's what you need, because you had, it was either him dropping 5 catches, 150 yards, or like 1 catch for 5 yards. So if Gabe Davis can get more consistent, I think they'll be great. Again, I would have liked to see them get another slot receiver as well, but I do think that offense is still going to be good with Dalton Kincaid, with Dawson Knox, Stephon Diggs, O'Cyrus Torrence now to get some more help on that interior offensive line. I think they'll be great. So it's going to be really good offense for me for the Bills. Up next, we have the Raiders, and this is an offense I think has improved a lot this offseason as well. You look at the receiving room, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, who they got in free agency, and then Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I think that's a very good receiving core, starting 3. Offensive line, it's a little questionable. They didn't really address it in the draft, and that was one thing a lot of people thought they should. To me, I'm looking at that interior offensive line. That's the pretty kind of bad part of that offensive line. I would have liked to see them getting another right guard and center. But other than that, it's not a horrible offensive line. I think it is better than people give them credit for. They obviously did lose Darren Waller in a trade this year. They did get Michael Mayer in the second round, though. I liked it. Austin Hooper is listed as the tight end 1. I like Michael Mayer, though. He's a very good blocking tight end with high upside in the receiving field. He has great hands, great contested catch rate, so I like it. Jimmy Garoppolo. I wasn't super high on the Jimmy Garoppolo signing, but I do think he is going to be a step up from Derek Carr. I know that's kind of one of my more bolder takes, but I am excited to see Jimmy Garoppolo there. I think he'll be decent at least. I think, him reunited with Josh McDaniels. I think that offense does have a shot to be a very good offense in this league. Josh Jacobs, obviously, at RB1, he's going to be great. So I think that offense, to me, I'm going to give it gonna be really good offense. I think the Jacoby Myers reuniting with Josh McDaniels, Jimmy Garoppolo obviously reuniting with Josh McDaniels several years later. I think it's going to be a solid offense. I think they're going to be really good. I think if that offensive line can step up and protect Jimmy Garoppolo, I think it's going to be a really good offense this year. And yeah, so I give them going to be a really good offensive grade. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Starting off, you look at that receiving room. Odell Beckham Jr., they signed in free agency. Rashad Bateman and then Zay Flowers in the slot. They took him with their pick 22. Zay Flowers, a great deep threat, incredibly fast. I can't wait to watch him on that Ravens team. I think he and Lamar Jackson are going to be a very deadly duo. The offensive line, it's kind of questionable. Obviously, left tackle Ronnie Stanley, he's great. The interior offensive line was a little questionable. Tyler Linderbaum at center, I think he's going to have a great year too. He looked great last year. Left guard was one position that they were kind of questionable on. They did go ahead and get Andrew Voorhees later in the draft, which I thought was a very underrated pick. So he can move, and I think he could potentially see the field week 1. Someone said, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do like the interior offensive line improvements in the draft, get some more depth there and kind of versatility so they can move some guys around. Lamar Jackson, obviously the big news is they did come to an agreement with his contract extension, so he is going to be their guy, and I was very excited because I think that receiving core has definitely upgraded. They did get Nelson Aguilar, which, I mean, more just depth, James Prochet as well, Devin Duvernay, so I don't think it's a very bad receiving core anymore. I think Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr. at your starting, and then behind them, Devin Duvernay, Nelson Aguilar, and James Prochet. I think it's a solid wide receiving core, and I think you can move the guys around and kind of get some versatility in that receiving core, which they haven't had in a long time, so I think it's going to be a much better offense than it was last year. Not much going on in the backfield. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and then Justice Hill. They didn't do too much there. They did draft Keaton Mitchell. I believe they drafted him. Yeah, they did. They drafted Keaton Mitchell as like RB4 as of now. I believe RB4 to RB3. I like that offense though. I think they invested heavily into Lamar Jackson, making him the highest paid quarterback, or not just quarterback, but highest paid player ever. So I think they obviously have faith in him. They have faith in that offense. So I have it going to be a really good offense in 2023. I have a lot of going to be really good offenses, but I think the Ravens are going to be solid. I think Lamar Jackson finally has some solid weapons. You have a veteran in Odell Beckham Jr. You have some explosiveness in Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman, obviously he's young. I think he's underrated. I don't think people give him as much credit as he deserves as well now that he's not injured. I think it's going to be a good offense, and I have them in going to be really good. Next, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I do want to say real quick, my tier list chart that I made kind of bugged out. Originally, I had this, and I looked back. I was going to post it today, the day I'm filming this part, but then I realized the Falcons, the Rams, and the Broncos were not on it, so I went back and had to make a new tier chart with the Falcons on it. It's weird because the Broncos and the Rams, for whatever reason, their pictures never go on. I just realized I had my taskbar open. Their pictures and their logos don't go on this tier chart, so I'll still do them. I'm just not going to be able to put them on the thing. I'll still give my opinion on how I think the Rams and the Broncos offense will be doing. That's why, though, the Falcons are now on here and they weren't before. And again, I don't know why the Rams and the Broncos specifically won't go on. I tried a bunch of different pictures and everything. But anyways, that's besides the point. Just a heads up. So I'll still do the tier ranking for them. They're just not going to be on here. Anyways, though, we have the Falcons. I think the Falcons are going to be a decent offense. Starting off, you look at that receiving core. It's probably one of the weakest things on that offense. You do have Drake London, Matt Collins, and then Scott Miller in the slot. Not a very good receiving core. I think Drake London's the best receiver on there. Matt Collins will be wide receiver 2, and then Scotty Miller will be wide receiver 3, I imagine. They lost Olamide Zaccheaus, who I actually thought was a pretty solid wide receiver 2. So the receiving core is not the best. Offensive line is pretty solid, though. Jake Matthews at left tackle. They signed Matthew Bergeron in the draft. He was their second rounder. I believe he's going to be starting at left guard. Chris Lindstorm in there at right guard as well. So it's a pretty good offensive line. Caleb McGarry at right tackle. So the offensive line is pretty solid. You move on, tight end, not much change. They did get John D. Smith in a trade with the Patriots, and then Kyle Pitts at tight end 1, obviously. Quarterback situation, Desmond Ridder, looking like he's going to be the quarterback 1 for this upcoming season. Taylor Heineke was signed in free agency. From what I'm seeing on the depth chart right now, it does say Desmond Ridder is quarterback 1. I'm not really sure who's going to start there. I think Taylor Heineke's okay. He has a lot of up and down moments. He's not great. He's not bad. I think he's kind of a solid starter. And then Desmond Ridder, it'll be interesting to see if he does start in the upcoming year, week 1. It'll be interesting to see how he develops in his year 2. I'm not really sure who they're going to go with. Either way, I don't think it's going to be a major impact. Like I said, I think Taylor Heineke is a solid starter. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's awful. I think he's solid. Desmond Ridder, he did show good flashes in his first year. He looked solid, so I think if they develop him in year 2, I think he can be a solid starter. So I am curious to see how they go with the quarterback situation. The running back situation is probably the best strength on that offense. The 8th overall pick, they went ahead and they took Bijan Robinson. Arthur Smith loves his running backs. So that backfield is looking very dangerous now. Bijan Robinson at RB1, Tyler Algier, who had a great rookie season at running back 2, and then Cordero Patterson at running back 3. That is a very good backfield. Now, was I very high on the Bijan Robinson signing? Not really. I think when you already have a running back who is making a case for a potential Rookie of the Year candidate, I wasn't really high on going out signing another one. Obviously, that's not how Arthur Smith thinks. He is very high on his running backs and loves his good running backs. So I understand the pick. I think it is going to be a very good backfield. But you look at that receiving core and you look, there are definitely some places potentially that they could have gone with either defensively or in that receiving core. I think that would have helped a lot more. I think the backfield is going to be really good though. So overall, I think this offense is going to be maybe a mid offense. I think, like I said, that backfield is going to be very dominant with the triple backfield of Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, and then Cordero Patterson. That offensive line is solid as well. I think the quarterback situation is a little iffy. I think you're getting solid starter, whether it's Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder at best. I don't think you're getting great. I don't think you're getting, you might get like above average at quarterback, at least for this next year. Then, like I said, the receiving core is Drake London, hopefully he'll progress. But I mean, Mac Hollins and Scotty Miller, you're just kind of getting mediocre. So I think it's a very mid team. I do think that backfield is going to save them. I think it's going to be very good and lethal triple backfield. But other than that, there's not much on this offense that's making me too excited. So I give it a very mid at best. Then up next, obviously they're not on the screen, but we have the Broncos. This is an offense I think is going to be a lot better this upcoming season. Now, they didn't do a whole lot with this offense this offseason. They did get Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. You look at that receiving core, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and then Jerry Jeudy at slot. I do think it's going to be a pretty good receiving core. Now, there have been talks that Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton potentially could be traded this offseason. I'm not sure. Apparently, it doesn't sound like they're interested in trading either one of them at all. They also got Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma in the draft. So I do think it's going to be a pretty solid receiving core. And then Tim Patrick, obviously coming back from his injury. I'm not even sure what it was, but he's coming back from an injury. I think it was a torn ACL last year. So that is going to be a nice addition. And then another nice addition to that offensive line was right tackle Mike McGlinchey, signing him from the 49ers. That was big. That offensive line was pretty bad last year. Then as well as Ben Powers. I think it's going to be a much better offensive line. I think the biggest addition, though, to the Broncos was the signing of Sean Payton as their head coach. I think finally getting some stability and a coach that knows what they're doing in office, I think it is going to drastically improve that offense. I think the Russell Wilson fluke and the rumors that he's kind of he's washed and that he's old and that he's never going to be the same, I don't think that's true. I think now that he has a good coach, good receiving core, solid offensive line, I think they're going to be good. So I'm going to put them in above. Oh, I just realized they're not even on here. If they were here, I would put them in above average. I think they'll be a pretty good offense. I don't know if they're going to be great. That offense, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I would put them in above average. I think they'll be solid. I think it might take a little time with the new head coach. It'll be interesting to see how they go with Sean Payton, but I do think it'll be a solid offense. So if I had the Broncos on the board, they would be in above average. And then we got the Rams. Again, I know you can't see them, but the Rams, I think this offense is going to be better as well. You're getting back Matthew Stafford, you're getting back Cooper Kupp. Starting off, you look at that receiving core, it looks like it's going to be Ben Skoranek, Van Jefferson, and then Cooper Kupp at the starting wide receiver in the slot. Pretty good receiving core. It's pretty solid. They also got Puka Nacua, I believe that's how you say his name, out of BYU in the draft, so getting some more wide receiver depth there. You look at that offensive line. That offensive line was pretty horrible last year. They didn't do too much to change it. They did get Steve Avila, though, who I really like. They got him in the second round of the draft. Steve Avila is one of my more underrated interior offensive linemen. He can play left guard, center, or right guard. I believe he's even had snaps at right tackle before. So an offensive line that drastically needs help everywhere. You have a guard who's very versatile. I believe he's going to be starting at left guard. That's where he has on the depth chart right now. So wherever he goes, he is going to be making an impact there. So I was glad they got Steve Avila to help that offensive line. Other than that, not too much major immediate impact. They did get another center, Sean Majan, I believe that's how you say his name. I don't know if he'll be starting at center or not. Could move to right guard potentially. Move him around. So I am curious to see how that works out. And again, not much going on that offense other than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp obviously returning. They will be back to start week 1 in the 2023 season, which I think are the two biggest moves. And they're not really moves, but things that could have happened because obviously last year Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp were gone for most of the season. So I do think getting your quarterback and your star wide receiver back will be major additions. So I'm going to put that offense in above average as well. Again, I know they're not there. If they were there, I'd be putting them in above average right with the Broncos. I think the one thing is that offensive line is still pretty horrible. You do have Steve Avila, obviously, but other than that, it really lacks talent. So that offensive line is going to be the main downgrade for me again. And, Matthew Stafford, I do think it's great they're getting him back, but we don't know how well Stafford's going to perform. He's getting older, and, he is coming off of an injury, so it'll be interesting. If Matthew Stafford can perform well, I think that offense will be pretty solid, but if not, if he kind of is on the downward spiral, then we will have to wait and see. But overall, I'll give it an above average grade for now, and then we'll have to wait and see until the actual season to see how they perform with Stafford and Cooper Kupp back. And up last, we have the New York Jets. Starting off looking at that receiving core, Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Mecole Hardman in the slot, and then you also have Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, and Randall Cobb. So it's a pretty different wide receiver look than it was last year besides Garrett Wilson. That offensive line is pretty solid. You have Lincoln Tomlinson at left guard, Joe Tippmann, who they drafted at center, Elijah Vera-Tucker at right guard, and then Max Mitchell at right tackle. No longer Micah Becton. He has been moved over to left tackle, because in the draft, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the Patriots traded down with the Steelers so they could trade up and take Broderick Jones. The Jets were looking to take Broderick Jones because they really need a left tackle, and that's really the final position they need for that offensive line is a left tackle. The Jets traded up, and they took Broderick Jones right before the Jets. That was a beautiful moment for me as a Patriots fan because I knew the Jets desperately wanted Broderick Jones to protect Aaron Rodgers' blind side. I was very happy to see them take Broderick Jones in front of them. They were on the clock for the full 10 minutes. They really didn't know what to do. They ended up going with Will McDonald, so I was very happy. So again, left tackle is the big need right now, but Micah Becton has been moved from right tackle to left tackle. It seems like he's going to be starting at left tackle, and then Max Mitchell has been moved to starting right tackle. So that offensive line, if Max Mitchell can do good at right tackle and Micah Becton can perform at left tackle and he can have a good transition, I think that will be a solid offensive line to protect Aaron Rodgers, who, yes, they did get in the trade with Green Bay after months of speculation. Aaron Rodgers, I'm kind of scared. Me being a Patriots fan, I hurt to see it, but I was glad, like I said, we were able to take Broderick Jones away from them. But Aaron Rodgers, I do think he is going to be great. He's in win now mode. He's getting old. I think this is kind of like the Tom Brady to the Buccaneers move, except it's Aaron Rodgers. And so I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be great. I think him and Garrett Wilson is going to be a very scary combo. Allen Lazard, he's going to be scary. Randall Cobb, a lot of these former teammates. Garrett Wilson Aaron Rodgers has had very high praise on Garrett Wilson. He said he's like a mini Devontae Adams, and I think Garrett Wilson is going to be great this year under Aaron Rodgers. So that offense is looking pretty scary. Tyler Conklin at tight end 1, CJ Uzomah, who they got in free agency. I think it's going to be a pretty good offense. The backfield is Breece Hall, who's coming back from an injury, who was offensive rookie of the year candidate before he got hurt. Zonovan Knight. So not much backfield action changing, but that offense is going to be very solid. I have them and going to be very good. So a lot of going to be really good offenses here. I am high on the Jets, though, and again, it kills me to say that as a Patriots fan, but I got to give credit where credit is due, and credit is definitely due to the Jets. All right, there you guys have it. That is my way too early 2023 NFL offensive prediction tier ranking video. A lot of going to be really good teams. I think it's going to be a very high-powered offense this next season, and a lot of these offenses, I'm very excited to watch it. I hope you guys did enjoy. Going forward, now that the draft is over, a lot of my content is going to be videos like this, tier ranking videos for predictions on teams next year. I'll get a defensive one like this out in a couple days, and then an overall team video out in a couple of days after that. Also, the schedule's released on the 11th. Let me see. I'm posting this on Tuesday, May 9th. The schedule's released Thursday, May 11th, so in just 2 days from now, they're going to be released, so I will get a video on that probably Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. I will be getting a video on the schedule. I'll be doing the Patriots, and then I'll probably go over the rest of the team schedules as well, fully focusing though mainly on the Patriots, and like I said, I'll kind of quickly go over the rest of the team schedules as well. But you guys know me, I'm a Patriots fan, so I will be looking in depth at the Patriots schedule, so make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. This was a very long video. It's over an hour long, which is pretty crazy. But I do hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, if you don't want to miss any of the other content, make sure to like and subscribe, because a lot of it is going to be 2023 prediction videos, tier ranking videos, fantasy football videos, a lot of stuff like that. And then once the mini camp start and training camp start again in the summer, I'll be getting videos out on that and trade rumors and all that. So make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Jay Lay, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.